Ready? Welcome to our newest exhibition in our main gallery here at the Peoria Art Guild. We have Leaf, which is photographs by Barb Hoffman. Barb, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself to begin with?
Okay, first I wanted to say a thank you to the Peoria Art Guild and to John and Jeff and all the staff here at the Peoria Art Guild, because they've given us such wonderful support, and it's important that we recognize their contributions. Okay, so my name is Barb Hoffman. I'm here in Peoria. I've been here since 1969, and I would say from a photography standpoint, I've been a photographer for about 40 years. And I just keep kind of refining and keep looking, and that's the most important thing, I think, for an artist, but especially for a photographer, is really trying to understand the way that you look at things and keep looking. So that's my
well, we have to say, Jeff and I, Barb and Ken happened to vacation down in Florida, and for the last 3 years, actually, this body of work is a culmination of 3 years of photography. But while you're down there, you do other things too, and I think it's amazing what you can do when you're doing a monotype or a watercolor or a photograph. It's all nature-based, and I think we saw these when you came back in March, first part of April actually, yes. And Jeff and I were just wowed by them. And we thought, we need to show these. And so from the very beginning, I want people to understand, when you come here, the most wonderful part about these photographs is there's no glass. So you are seeing the photograph without any distraction whatsoever. And I think that's part of this. The presentation is part of the strength of this body of work, is that it was so well thought out. And we talked and we went back and forth and we met several times to figure out how we were going to curate the show and everything. But we're going to start with this piece here, which is actually the announcement card piece. Right. And let's talk, it's called Leaf. So explain what that means.
Okay, well, the first thing I wanted to tell you is that these pictures were taken in Florida. All of the pictures in the show are taken leaves from the same tree. So some people think, oh man, there's a lot of difference, but they're really all plain old leaves from the same tree. And all I did was really look at them in different kinds of light. All of the pictures were taken in natural light, sunlight, and it's a very simple process. So that would really let me try to see as much as I could see about the beauty of this particular subject. So this particular photograph is you can see it has a leaf on it, and this is the shadow of the leaf. So it almost looks like a vase.
It does.
But because of the way I turned the picture, it became a vertical, and then this leaf looks like it's sort of standing on top of it.
Well, I think that's really important too, because almost every one of these has a lot of structure to them. Mm-hmm. And when I mean structure, that there's something very solid that kind of dictates the design and the placement of the objects. And as we go through, and especially these three, and one of the interesting things that I think you are a lot like me, as far as when we make art, we think serial-like, and thinking that we have a number of pieces that should be shown together. And we have 3 of these. We have a number of groupings of 3, which are triptychs, which means that in some way they all relate to one another. Some element about them draws them together as a unique body. These 3, and Ken is the one that really keeps mentioning it, with these large, wonderful, dark shadows, which are not actually totally black. You have to really get up to them, and you can see the gradation and the color and the way that a real shadow is, that it's not just black. But we have these wonderful forms, and they're much like Robert Motherwell, and who is a painter who's known for doing these enormous paintings called the Spanish Elegy. And they're these black forms that are more calligraphic than anything. And I think when we see these, Barb, they're just the tension, the slightest tension, and particularly these 2. I think this is just incredible how you got that.
Well, if you think about the way about the way the sun works. It comes in, I'm holding it,
Yeah.
it comes in and it hits the surface, and then the shadow forms when I put the leaf down on a board. So the shadow is created from after I'm blocking where the leaf is in the picture. So all of these that you see all have a shadow because they're all
natural.
But the most important thing to remember is, if we think about what leaves do, the leaves from trees, they're porous because that's how photosynthesis works. Photosynthesis means that the sunlight comes in, it does its thing with photosynthesis, and then oxygen comes out the other end. So what we're seeing here, the reason these colors come into the picture is because it's porous. And what I saw was, and we can really see it, and let's go to this one over here. This big piece, the leaf is up here on the top, you can see it? And what I saw was the sun was coming through and projecting the color on to the white surface. And I thought, and then you can see there's a gradation because it's the brightest at the top, and then just softly goes down to the bottom.
And I think one of the wonderful things about this whole body of work, and actually almost 90% of your photographs, is the fact that you do isolate the image by using simply a large white board like foam core, and you set it directly in the natural light, and you let nature take its course, so to speak. So we get these wonderful crisp lines, and you can isolate these wonderful forms. I mean, this is just amazing. This leaf, but it's the shape that is teetering there on this, what looks like a mountain almost. It just amazes me. And I think what's interesting is we have this one, but then we have this one, which is the same idea, but it's shifted just a little bit. We have more of an atmosphere in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that would be caused by
sunlight coming through the leaf and then projecting it down onto the surface. The other thing that makes that I really work with in my work is simplicity, trying to eliminate a lot of other kinds of distraction. So what I do is, and that's what the camera does for me. I mean, because when we look around, we see everything. But when you look through the camera, you're isolating what you're looking at, and that lets me really look in there. And that's how I really found this. I was working with some other just material on the board, and I just picked up these leaves to look at how they would shadow onto the board, and I picked one up and I saw this. I saw this happening, and I said, what is that? That's amazing. And then I realized what was happening is that the sunlight was driving that color through the leaf and onto the board. And I said, oh, this is amazing. This is one of the first of the series that I took, and the rest of them were done over a 3-year period.
Yeah.
So the idea that the camera lets you eliminate distraction and lets you really focus on what is going on. So that's important.
And I think this one is somewhat different. We have these wonderful, almost graceful shapes on the 2 side ones, and then this one in the middle. Talk a little bit about that, because it is different, but at the same time, this shape is the same as what is projected over there. Is kind of the same as that's kind of embracing this shape. How do you arrive at that detail?
Well, I think, when I'm working with it and I'm holding, it's such a simple process. I'm holding the leaf, I'm holding the camera, and there's the board and there's the sun. So I have to keep moving things, and I keep looking. And I told you this the other day, that when I was a little kid, and the first word I learned in first grade was the word look. I don't know, look, Jane, look, see Spot run. And that word look is so important to me, and to try to look actively. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you see here, is that I must have just kept turning it and finding it. So here, the light is coming right here, just on that edge.
I know. And and I think, again, your history, your experience in life in general is a lot about design and trying to figure things out. But these accidental things that just I mean, that doesn't exist if it's gone. It changes the whole image, and it's just that little
Well,
sliver.
John, that's the art.
I know.
That's the art part. The art part is looking at form and looking at line and looking at light and looking at shadow and color. And I think that, you know, as an artist, you're always looking at that combination to see what is it that I'm really looking for? And that's what you find in a lot of these pieces. You say, that's what I'm looking for.
Well, I think speaking of form, this magnificent piece, which is 35 by 45, it's the largest photo we have. And what I love is it's so grand in scale, but it's also grand in form. And it just, this sweeping line here with this cradled like that is just, it's exciting. It really is. Visually, it is so exciting. And it commands the whole wall, really.
And you can see that it's not solid. I mean, it's not flat. This is, this is actually the leaf forms here. That's the shadow, but I've turned it upside down. That's my art.
Well, I think that's one thing that people really need to do is come see the show, because being present gives you these fine details here. You have just, it's like a sand dune, and you have these little crests just right there. Or we have where it's almost like the wind swept this part of the leaf and just grazed it, so that it just gives this, it just gives it so much body, I think. Again, another triptych, and I think these are really amazing because some of them are overlapping, but you still have the same tension between the darker part and the colored part. And then this one is like walking into Richard Serra sculpture, and you get to that point where it's almost claustrophobic because it's so close and there's so much tension there. And then in this one,
you can see too, John, that it almost fills the space.
yes.
So then, you know what, you're looking and you're seeing, okay, I want to fill that space, because it's not just the negative space and the positive space. You see, this is actually the positive space and this is the negative space, but it actually inverts itself to be, this is what you're positive that you're looking at.
And what I love is you look at this and the tension is there. Now, and I don't know, did you invert this one too?
I did not.
Okay, so look at the tension there. And there, if you look real closely, you're gonna see there's just this speck of almost orangish brown there. But it's like, that's exactly where it's kissing this other image. It's just the closeness is remarkable.
See, when I'm looking through the camera, I'm moving and watching and looking, and when I see that, I'm not on motor drive. I'm just punching the button once to get that picture, and I might have taken 3 shots, but I don't have 50
well, and
pictures.
one of the things that, of course, our sister loved them because they're just so small, and this is so concise, shall I say, these images, these blocks that you printed. Now, how many different settings and times did you use to correct that? You know, were any of these done together, or were they all done separately?
Separate. They're all separate. They're all examples of separate. This was, I think, the second year. This was the first year. The one that was the first year. This was the third year. So they're all different, but because I'm really using that same process every time I'm working, and I'm not just going out there once and saying, oh, I think I'll work today. I'm really trying to find. We were there, you know, in Florida. We're there for 3 months, and I'm looking for a time when the sun is there and I'm there. And then I say, okay, Kenny, I have to work today. I have to shoot, and I'm going to shoot today, and because I can see that this is the optimal time.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things, and we know your work from decades ago and everything, but I do know one of the work ethics that you have is the fact that you will determine a specific time and you will keep documenting that. You did an incredible series quite a few years ago now, but down at Forest Park Nature Center in one of the little glens that you just found this certain spot and you just kept going back and shooting it at different times of day or at the same time of day to see how things change over time. And I think that's what these little ones really show us. by putting them almost like a narrative here, though, that you can kind of read them, you know?
Uh-huh.
Now, the one exception to all of this is this wall of blueprints, not meaning that they're blueprints, but they're prints that have been inverted, and the color is the result of the inversion,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, I am a photographer and I do have a studio and I do have a computer. And I just like to see sometimes what would happen if I invert the picture. And that just means that you would look at the negative of it. So, and the color of this one is, I know the color of this one is green. So when I did the inversion, it was blue. And so I tried it with quite a few of the pieces, and these are the ones I like the best, and I just did them because I think it would be an interesting change from the tonality of most of the show is warm colors, and here we have a cool color.
Yeah. Well, and people they gravitate to this wall. First of all, this is the quad really sets itself up that you can kind of, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, it's like you have that. I refer to these, and I know it embarrasses you just a little bit, but these are George O'Keeffe.
Oh.
These are forms and these are details that she would have extracted from the flowers and the petals themselves, and especially this one. I was looking at something of hers the other day, and I thought, oh, this line is just like her. You know, this crevice here is just, it sets itself up to be a wonderful natural detail, which she was obviously very known for.
If you look at some of these, they do look almost figurative, because let's say in this one, it looks like a torso.
Yes.
And then that might look like the hip of a woman who's lying on a bed or something.
Yeah.
So there are places where there's a sensuality about them, which I really like.
And people are so taken by these, I have to admit.
That's great.
I know,
That's
it really
great.
is fun. We have these three here, and again, I think, and I've told you before, but it's like Mapplethorpe. It's like he could get the graceful line that just stops you in your tracks. And I mean, the way that this cradles that just so perfectly, and this deepness here, it gives it not just depth, but it gives it richness, I think, personally. And the same goes here. We've got this, and you just have this wonderful curve here that is all natural. And I think that's what...
Maybe as people look at these, they'll kind of get a different feeling of what a shadow can be, because shadows, I've worked with them for a long time, and they're so interesting to look at. And if you're making a photograph of something, if you have something lying on a whiteboard and you have an object on it, when you turn the whiteboard, the whole object changes because the shadow is moving with the sun. As you're turning it around, it's changing its position, and it's a whole different everything. So that's part of this too, is trying to figure out what is the best position and situation for this particular.
And how long does it take you to determine that? I mean, do you have
a couple minutes?
I was just going to say, but it's rather quick. It's rather quick though, isn't it? That you have to make a decision, and then you snap the photo and you think, okay, let's see what I can do next.
And sometimes I'll work. I think this one in particular, I'm holding the leaf, and I'm sort of pushing it down on the whiteboard a little bit to make it bend, and this is what happened.
Oh, cool.
The shadow is behind it only because when I pushed it down, it backed itself up into there. And I thought, oh, that's really a beautiful composition.
Well,
because composition is, we're artists, and we think about composition and we think about structure.
And I think what's so interesting too is this is almost painterly like.
Yes.
And that I think is amazing, because we think of a lot of times of photographs as being very graphic. Mm-hmm. It is, there's hard edge, there's not any, color is just kind of flat sometimes. And this is like someone actually went in and they naturally, mixed the color and with your eye, and it just, I don't know, it's really
sometimes when I was working, I was saying, might see it and I would say, oh, I hope I can capture that.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
part of the.
This piece is really remarkable. First of all, if you get really close, again, I can't encourage people enough to come down and see the exhibit in person, but this wonderful, where the leaf is and the attachment or almost detachment of it is so fine there. But this is, Jeff and I refer to this as Randy Carlson's picture. It looks like it could be a ceramic picture by him because he loves that natural form, and you captured that so well.
Here you can really see the leaf. You know, if you, this was it had turned yellow on the tree, and I just took it off and said, okay, let me see what I can do with that. And you can see again that the light is coming from this direction and driving the
Grading
shadow.
across,
And this, the outside, is the shadow of the screen in the lanai where I'm shooting.
And so it's
and
I think
that's its shadow.
Yeah, I think what's also amazing is how well you get the details and how exquisite they, and I keep coming back to this because, guys, it looks like it should just fall to the ground. It's just, it's ready to, you know, and all of that. The last pieces we'll talk about is actually a diptych, or two pieces that really do work together simultaneously as one image, yet they're independent. And these two, again, the amount of tension that you have created is just so remarkable.
Sometimes when people look at these, they'll say, I don't know where's the leaf. Well, the leaf is, you can always tell it's the one that has some kind of stuff on it, like little indentations or color changes, and then this is the shadow. And you can see that I didn't take it, I took it in a vertical direction, but I liked it, I mean, in a horizontal direction, but I like it in this vertical.
Well, and I think sometimes by orienting it an unnatural way, so to speak, is you get this. I mean, here it's like you've walked right in and it is this close to you.
Right.
And there's tension, but there's also beauty in it. It's because it's touching just the way it should. You know what I mean? It's not melded together or anything like that. But Barb, thank you so very, very much. You have no idea how much joy this brings us.
I'm so happy.
Jeff and I turn on the gallery lights every time, and we sit here and we just take it in, and it's truly in awe because this is a wonderful exhibit. It's up through the end of the month. Please come and join us.